everyone, welcome to Backyard Garden. I want to talk to you about 9 different vegetables that you could be planting in your garden right now. It's the end of July, early August, and I am planting in a Midwest zone 4 or 5. You want to first, before you plant everything that I'm going to list here, you want to determine what zone you're growing in. Now, on the way you determine this, on the back of your seed packets, it'll have an illustration of the United States. And so figure out which zone you're in based on that. Some seed packets actually do not have that, like this one doesn't have that. And so if you have seeds that don't have that, you could just look it up online and just figure out what zone you are growing in that way. So my first one is one of my favorites, is radishes. So the cool thing about radishes, when you buy your own seeds, you can get so many varieties I've never even heard of, you can't find in the grocery store. For example, at least the grocery stores I go to. So for example, there are white icicle radishes. There are black radishes. This one I just bought this year in the summer, and so I haven't actually planted it. Radishes are a cool weather crop, and actually all of the crops that I'm going to talk to you about today, all the 9 of them, are crops that can take a frost. So we're planting them late in the season, and actually they prefer frost. So we plant them late in the season, so when they start coming to maturity, the weather is going to be cooler and they're going to be happier, and you'll be more successful with your crop because you planted them later. Radishes also come in multicolors. Who knew there was an orange radish? Well, somebody probably did. I didn't. And then there's long radishes that are similar to like a carrot. And then even a watermelon radish. Isn't that pretty? This one I've never tried either because I found this over the summer, and so I'm going to plant it now. So hopefully I'll be able to share my harvest with you later on in the fall. You want to plant them in a time where they're going to mature in the cooler weather. If you do not plant them during a time where it's the cooler weather, the problem you'll find is your radishes and whatever crop that prefer the cooler weather will bolt. And what it means when it bolts, it means that the plant goes into seed. And so when that happens, your crop will not go to full maturity. Another taproot. Carrots are a great one to get started now. Get started now. Beets are a perfect one that can really take a frost. They prefer the cool, and actually beets, a lot of people may or may not know, but with beets you can leave them in the ground even if it snows. The cooler weather is going to make for a sweeter vegetable as far as the taproot vegetables go. And then that leads me into number 4, onion. Now with onions, you're not going to probably at this late in the season be able to get a full bulbing onion, but you will be able to get these cute little spring onions. And come late in the season, it's going to be so nice to have these fresh vegetables to harvest and on your dinner plate. Number 5 are snap peas. So snap peas, they have a second planting of August. They don't like it super hot. They're another plant that will quickly bolt on you. And with them, you're going to want to make sure that you're harvesting often in order to keep the plants going and producing for you. So when you leave vegetables, and I'm going to talk about a summer crop, like a hot weather crop, like for example cucumbers. If you've ever left a cucumber or didn't catch one that was hidden from you growing on the vine, you'll find that it doesn't produce as much for you, and it's because plants are trying to reproduce by making their seeds in order to carry on their offspring. So it's important that, especially with these peas, that you harvest often in order for the plant to keep producing for you. Number 6 is spinach. Now with spinach, I'm going to recommend that you don't really follow the spacing recommended on the back of the seed pack, because with spinaches and lettuces, those are crops that you can plant and very closely, and you can cut and come again. They're sort of like growing, say for example, grass. I don't have any grass on my property, but when you cut it, it grows back. Same thing with spinach and lettuce. So when you do this, if you do decide to plant that way, you don't want to cut the whole thing down, but you'll want to cut some around the outer leaves, maybe 2 or 3 leaves once it gets a good size. That way they can continue to grow on as you're continuously harvesting from them. So they're continuously harvesting from them. So that's 2, onions is 3. So that, was that number 5? I lost track of count of this. But next crop, let's say number 6 or 7. Brassicas, many different crops fall under that category. So you can have cabbage, you can have bok choy, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, kohlrabi. I'm sure I'm missing something, but all of those crops that I've listed prefer the cool weather, and your crops again will be sweeter once the weather cools down and it can take a frost. My kale that I grew early in April took 2 snows. We had some freak snows that happened early in the growing season, and they were totally unfazed by it. Lettuces as well. So cabbages, the way you want to determine cabbage, because a lot of different varieties, there are so many to choose from. I only have 2, but this particular one is only 60 days to harvest, and with the bok choy, which is also in the cabbage family, is 50 days to harvest. So if in your garden right now you have a little space, say next to your tomato or peppers that you might be growing, these are some plants that can be interplanted amongst all the other plants that you have growing. So right now I have space next to my tomatoes. I actually have already done this, but I go in and I just go ahead and plant a bunch of seeds around the base of your existing plants. And once the weather gets cool and you start removing these hot weather plants from your garden, these other plants that I'm mentioning now are going to have more light and space to grow. Number 7, kale. The thing I love about kale is when you grow from seed, there's so many different varieties that you can have that I don't always see in the grocery store. This one I think is so beautiful, the lacinato or dinosaur kale. It's a pretty blue color and they stand up very tall, and they're just so attractive to have in the garden. So lacinato kale. This one I actually find that I prefer to eat, and it's the red Russian kale. So hopefully you can see that little picture, the red Russian kale. And with this variety, when I ran out of lettuces, I find myself that this is a good alternative to eating lettuce on your sandwiches and your salads, or however you might want to have lettuce. It's pretty thin and not as like dense. Like you can kind of tell that this one's really dense, and so the red Russian is a great variety to grow. The third kale variety that I'm growing is a dwarf curly blue, and with this one I harvest the leaves when they're about 3 inches, and I have them very, very closely, densely packed, and I'm just continuously cutting and coming again. I cut those lower leaves and I allow it to grow on, and I will come back every few days and get more, but it's a fast grower, so those are excellent. Kale. Now, arugula, let's see, how many days to harvest? Only 40 days, super quick growing plant. I forgot to mention radishes are only, some of them are 22 days. That's super fast, really rewarding to grow, just because it's such a quick turnaround. And oh, I almost forgot, you're gonna want to, with radishes in particular, you have 22 days and then you get radishes. Every about 2 weeks you're going to want to re-sow. So in another 2 weeks, I'm gonna plant some more radishes. That way you'll have a continuous harvest of whatever crop, well, mostly with quick growing crops like radishes, but you'll have a continual harvest that you'll be able to enjoy. Number 9, I don't know if I'm actually a number 9, but the last but not least is lettuce. So many different varieties that you could choose from, and honestly, you're going to really want to check the back of your packaging for lettuces, because some of them are very quick to mature, and some, for example, this Paris Island Cause. This one is 65 to 80 days. That's quite a long time. Whereas I have some that are only 40 days. Big difference. So if you have that amount of time or space, I recommend planting many different varieties of things so you don't get bored with what you're eating. Now I know with this being a year of COVID and there's been a lot of new gardeners out there, and I am putting these videos out because it's important to me to have food security, and I want to be able to teach others how to grow food and to make the most out of your garden. Right now I have a decent sized garden. I wish I had more space to grow more food, and this year I found myself growing in places that I never would have imagined growing food in before, just because I was trying to be food secure. And for those of you who may be gardening in an apartment and feel like you don't have the ability to grow food, I want to put out videos for you as well, because I think that there are vegetables that you can grow from a sunny windowsill if you don't have, say, a balcony. And I want to talk to you more about that as the season progresses. But I'll make sure that you guys have access. You guys take care, and thanks for watching Blackyard Garden. I appreciate you all following me and liking and subscribing. Check back again next Sunday for a new video from Blackyard Garden.